And welcome, everybody, to the Monday edition of the Just Parlays show here at the Max Wagers Network. I'm your co-host, Scott Reichel. And since it is a parlay show, of course, I'm joined by none other than the parlay god, Chris King. Chris, how's it going? How's your weekend?
It wasn't too bad. I mean, we had quite a few parlays that came through, a lot of 2 and 4 teamers. So people walked away with some money if they had paid attention. The best one was on Friday when we watched the Blue Jays score, 407 runs in the first 3 innings?
Felt that way. It's one of those games where you're really thankful as a total bettor that there's no mercy rule in baseball because they had to actually play out the 8.5. But I thought it was really weird. First of all, we can just talk about it. I know we're going to talk about something else quickly. What the hell's going on with Boston?
Boston is probably the streakiest team you can find in Major League Baseball right now. You know, they got on a hot streak in June after they were terrible in April and May. Now they're cold again. Now you don't have Sale. He's back on the IL. You don't have Devers. And a lot of these guys are just underachieving. I mean, Bogarts is hitting .313, but what about the rest of these guys? You know, what's J.D. Martinez done? What's Vasquez done? And some of these other guys that, you know, Boston was looking to contribute. And then you look at the pitching staff, and you know, you're trying to rely on Cutter Crawford every 5th day, and that's not going to really get done. Yeah.
Bello is even worse. So
this is true. I got to give Crawford credit. He has pitched fairly well. But Bello has been not good. And that's being generous.
Yeah, it's definitely true. I actually faded Crawford on Saturday, but that was solely because Manoah was against them. So
yep, I had faded him as well.
But I mean, I'm looking at the Red Sox results here. They're 48 and 48. They're in 4th place in the AL East. They're only half a game up on Baltimore because they played one more game than Baltimore. So we'll see what happens there. But Boston's last 5 games, lost by 4, lost by 3, lost by 23, lost by 11, lost by 13. So they've lost by at least 3 runs in each of their last 5. They beat the Yankees in that extra inning game on Friday night before the All-Star break, and they lost the 4 games before that to Tampa. So Boston is 1-9 in their last 10. Not great. I'm not going to say the core is going to get fired for it, but doesn't this have a little bit of like a Francona chicken and poker in the locker room type feel to it?
It does, and, you know, you have to wonder, can they turn it around? Everybody, you know, you looked at the way Toronto's turned it around since they fired Montoyo. The Phillies had turned things around up until this weekend after firing Girardi.
Well, in their defense, your team is on fire, right? They've won 3 in a row since the All-Star break.
Yeah, and that's 4 straight wins because don't forget they beat the Mets the week or the day before the All-Star break.
Watch out for
so break them up.
Yeah, but
I mean, 25 runs in 3 games against in a lineup where your best hitter is probably Wilson Contreras.
Contreras has struggled this year. I think he's going to be trade bait, but he's been decent recently. But I do want to ask you about Boston because you said, can they turn it around? We know that the management is focused pretty heavily on getting a basketball team in Vegas right now, where the Red Sox are not exactly a big priority for the owners. Do you think they have a fire sale? Because I think there's actually a possibility.
I guess anything's possible at this stage, but you have to wonder if they're going to try to add just to try and make a push down the stretch. The question is, what do they have that people want? And that's going to be the biggest issue, because if you're going to go after some of these guys, you're not going to get them on the cheap, especially if you're a team like Boston that's known to push the luxury tax repeatedly.
Yeah. I think that when it comes to attractive trade pieces, of course, you have Bogarts. I think you could maybe get Vasquez on the cheap. He hasn't been that great this season, and the catcher position, of course, is underwhelming at the plate. So Vasquez could be an appealing option there for some teams. But people keep talking about Boston's ownership and how they're kind of focused on other endeavors. And the fact that they didn't pay Mookie kind of tells me the fact that they aren't fully prioritizing the success of the baseball team. So I do think it is possible that after they let Betts walk for Verdugo and a couple other prospects, Boston's not afraid to shell some of the salary cap because their mind is elsewhere. And that's kind of why I brought it up, because if this team keeps struggling, there is a chance, even if they're, let's just say, 3 games under 500, they might pull the plug on some pieces.
It's definitely possible. I mean, you look at all these guys that have disappointed, and, you know, sure, Martinez is hitting .302, but do you want to pay a guy the amount of money you're paying him for 9
DH.
homers in 81 games.
Also a DH. You can't field.
True.
I mean, that's not as bad now because the National League has a DH. But if you're going to pay a guy that much money, you want him to at least have the option of playing the outfield, and that's really just not the case. But I mean, what can the Red Sox do realistically about the rotation? Because you're looking at the options that they have. They're going to have to trade for somebody if they really want to try to make something work. But Sale was a disaster in the minors. Got called up. Was actually pretty decent against Tampa. Then he got hit in the hand against the Yankees in the first inning, broke his finger, out indefinitely. Crawford's been okay, but they have Bello, who should never see a major league mound for the rest of the season. He's atrocious. Pavetta's been falling back down to earth, which is expected. And I'm trying to think of what decent pitching options they have.
Well, I mean, Hill and Waka are both on the IL.
That's what I'm saying. Like, half the rotation is dead. Like, I don't know what they're supposed to do. Like, it seems like
Winkowski has COVID. Seabold's on the IL, so you're down to. I mean, they could put Whitlock back in the rotation
because that went really well the first time around.
Well, he wasn't bad. I mean, he's got a 325 earned run average, and he's got a 5-1 strikeout to walk rate.
It's one of your best relievers. Like, I don't know what you're supposed to do. It seems like Boston's pitching staff is just fully in the infirmary.
Yeah, I mean, you look and they've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 guys from their pitching staff that have pitched this season that are on the IL.
And you also said Seabold. Like, that's how dark it is for Boston. We're mentioning how Seabold's unavailable. Like, that's not a great option.
No, it's not. I will say that, but desperate times call for desperate measures. And, I mean, come on, they picked up Hansel, or they had Robles and then dumped him.
Yeah.
So, I mean, and that, like you said, Pivetta, he started horribly. Everybody faded him and made a whole bunch of money early in the season. Then he got hot. Everybody made a bunch of money because they chased him. Mm-hmm. And now he's back to sucking. And guess who's pitching for the Red Sox tonight?
It's Pivetta. That's why I brought it up. I mean, I'm trying to think of anyone trying to make a case to actually back Boston at this point, because I know it was a 3-game series, and you could even go back to the All-Star break against the Yankees. They haven't done anything well. They have not hit. Their fielding might be the worst fielding I've seen in like a 3-game stretch. That was the amount of errors and just complete lack of just fundamentals I thought was offensive at times, and they can't pitch. Besides that, they're fine. But no, they've been struggling at like every single aspect of the game. And I'm just throwing it out there. If Boston does not turn it around in the next week, do not be surprised if Boston is a surprise seller, in my opinion.
That's true. And as Crystal said, as a Blue Jays fan and somebody who sees a lot of the AL East, just like you do with living in the city, watching the Jays in Boston was entertaining and shocking because she's never seen Boston play so terribly.
I haven't either, but
that sums it up in a nutshell. Boston played like crap. They've looked like crap the last couple of weeks, and it's going to be a challenge to get any higher than 4th in the AL East at this point.
Yeah, and I also want to point out the fact that even though Boston, of course, has the name recognition, and even though that they have some talent on paper, we talk about chemistry, or maybe people don't enough, and for whatever reason, besides injuries, of course, it just seems like nothing's clicking. And I'm not exactly sure why it would turn around anytime soon. I mean, we saw in the beginning of the year, in April especially, they were, 12 games under?
Yeah.
I mean, we've seen this team be very streaky all year long, and it seems like they're going back on the downswing for a long period of time. But
and speaking of surprise sellers, Tim says the Phillies could be a surprise sell team if they struggle in this series with Atlanta.
I think that it's possible, but Philly's still going to be competing for that 3rd and a wild card spot, worst case scenario. So I do think they'll be, in the running. Plus, they're not going to sell because Harper's supposed to come back at some point. Like, Schwarber's been so good, people forget that the guy they're paying $300-something million has just not played for about a month. So I don't think you can sell when Harper's going to come back in, a month or so?
But Castellanos is hitting, 245.
He's been terrible. I mean, you're looking at...
You talk about a team that can't field. The Phillies are the National League version of the Red Sox.
Just saying, they might sell, but I'm assuming with Harper supposed to come back at some point in the next couple weeks, I don't think they're going to sell. Boston just might, because the ownership group seems to be willing to save money.
But do you have any faith in the Phillies rotation beyond Nola and Wheeler? I mean, are you going to trust for them to be a playoff team? Are you going to put faith in Kyle Gibson or Ranger Suarez or God knows who they're going to put in the fifth spot on any given night? Bailey Falter, insert name here.
Yeah, well,
this could be you.
Well, here's also kind of the experiment is the fact that if you look at the actual National League and you try to think of who's going to make up the 3 wildcard spots, there's like 1 or 2 that are slam dunk picks, and the others are just up for grabs. So I think Philly could be in it even if they're around 85 wins. Like there's a couple of teams clinging to a potential wild card prayer that I don't think are very good baseball teams. So I feel like that's kind of the counterpoint. I mean, you can just go down the line. Of course, you're going to have the NL West have a couple of playoff teams no matter what. That's a given. But the Giants have fallen apart as well. And
True.
You're going, like, do you like the Cardinals or Brewers? Like, I guess kind of.
Well, I mean, one of those teams is going to get in, regardless.
You're assuming so, and then you have the Braves and Mets. So I guess the argument would be, do you like the Padres to stay afloat? Do you potentially think the Cardinals or the Brewers fall back down to earth? The point is, there are some teams that should get in, but you can make an argument for a collapse, and Philly maybe finds a way to sneak its way in there. But do I think Philly's going to sell? No. I think they got too much pride. I don't think they're going to do anything, in my opinion.
Now, would you rather back the Phillies for a wild card spot or the Marlins, who are 4 games behind Philadelphia, 5 behind the Cardinals for the last wild card spot as we go into this week?
I think I'd pick the Phillies because I know for a fact that the Marlins will not buy at the deadline because they're allergic to buying at the deadline. Philly might try a desperation move, which would not surprise me. We've seen Philly do that in the past. So I'll go with Philly. I love Miami's pitching staff. I still despise the lineup. And Alcantara had a great start yesterday. They won the game, but he got a no decision. What else is new? So, no, I feel like I'm going to pick Philly because Miami can't score, and that's just the problem for me.
Yeah, I had picked the Marlins as my pick of the day yesterday. I watched Bass blow the save in the bottom of the ninth. For a second, I thought he was just going to lose it outright, but, he managed to get out of it with the game still tied. And then, of course, the Marlins won it in 10. But, yeah, another disappointing no decision for Alcantara. His fan 10 in 6 frames, left with a 3-2 lead.
And the Marlins scored about 5 or 6 runs, but of course, more than half of them came with a guy on second base to start the inning. So that
exactly
kind of plays a factor, But either way, I think it's time to pivot to the other news story. I know we did not do a NASCAR show this past weekend, but there was a bit of drama involved, especially in the betting markets. Denny Hamlin won the race, and then Kyle Busch came in second. And then about 3 hours after the tickets were graded in most sports books, Denny Hamlin and Kyle Busch officially failed post-race inspection. And Chase Elliott ended up getting the win at Pocono. A lot of layers to unpack here. Either it involves just the procedure of the post-race, I'd say, investigation. You have Elliott winning. You have the grading in sports books, and then you also have the DFS grading, which is a bit controversial. Where do you want to start? Have you seen anything like this where not only the first place guy got disqualified, but also the second place guy got disqualified?
No, I haven't seen it where they both gotten disqualified. Like what we were talking about before the show, he's the first guy to be disqualified that won a race since 1960 when Emmanuel Zervakis had his win taken away at Wilson Speedway because his fuel tank had carried a half a gallon more gas than a standard tank.
Yeah, the oversized gas tank. It's an underrated cheating method.
It's going to be weird because, they can still appeal. It could get overturned. I saw that FanDuel said that the house rules state that the bets are settled based on the podium, regardless of what happens afterwards. So if you had bet on Hamlin there, you got your money. But on the flip side, like you said, DFS, Elliott gets 43 points for winning. Busch gets 5. Hamlin gets 6. I don't know. What do you make of that? Do you think that's fair? I mean, to have it overturned after the fact and then, losing all your points?
Well, this is kind of the controversy with it. Now, I was not playing NASCAR DFS, so I'm going to have to take Twitter's word for it because there were a couple of NASCAR guys who play DFS on certain books, and apparently DraftKings doesn't regrade. DraftKings keeps the results as soon as the race is over, and they don't bother revisiting. So I don't know if that's true or not. That's what I heard. So according to DraftKings, if you had Hamlin, you got the most amount of points, which I think is a huge debate because I'm curious if DraftKings, they had to go back and grade the straight bets and give Elliott the win. So I'm kind of curious how that actually works. But it's from what I heard, FanDuel does regrade, DraftKings does not for DFS, which I find fascinating, if that is true. Once again, I don't know
it says DraftKings says it'll pay out bets on both Hamlin and Elliott. So at least if you bet there on Hamlin, you'll get your money too. It also says that all bets will be settled based on the unofficial results sent out by NASCAR. But notes that if a change is made in the official race result, all previous winners will stand, and new winners will also be settled as one.
Okay.
However, if you had bet at Caesars, those are settled according to the official order of finish. So if you bet on Hamlin, you're out of luck because the official order says Elliott was the winner. So you would end up holding what once was a winning ticket, only to have that go the other way.
So it does seem like most of the sports books meet in the middle, and they grade both drivers out as winners, which I think is a nice touch for PR purposes. Except Caesars, but they got their own castle, they got their own, whatever, Caesars. But still, they have their own salad. They're very busy over at Caesars. But still, I think it's definitely an interesting approach to grade both as winners. I guess the argument is, well, if you grade one as a winner and they withdraw all their money from the account, what are you going to have, a negative balance? Like,
yes,
I don't know what other
$12,000.
That's what I'm saying. Like, I don't know what else you're supposed to do there. So I think that's kind of cool. The DFS thing, I think, is fascinating because that's another layer of betting. But, I don't really know what else you're supposed to do. Are you supposed to... You kind of have to punish the bettor in a way for Caesar's purpose. Like, I can understand either argument because even though it's a brutal bad beat, if you bet on Hamlin and he got the win stripped, rules are rules. And if you're going to bet on the guy to win, and at the end of the race, he doesn't get credited with the win, then why should you get credited for the money?
Rye said that Fox graded both Hamlin and Elliott as a loss.
I'm assuming that might have been initially, and Fox Bet's going to have to regrade that because that doesn't make any sense. Well, one of them had to win. So, I think Fox initially maybe graded them all as losses and was going to regrade it after. But there's no way both of them are going to stand as losses. That doesn't make any sense.
And to your point about cheating, as Bobby the Brain Heenan used to say on Primetime Wrestling, win if you can, lose if you must, but always, always cheat.
Yep. But, it's really a rare thing. You said the winner being disqualified since 1960. It means I think it's pretty safe to say this is uncharted territory where the first and second place drivers ended up getting disqualified, which is really wild. But not a good day for the Toyotas.
Logano won in 2017 and failed the midweek inspection afterwards, but they didn't take the win away from him. But it couldn't count towards postseason consideration. In this case, Hamlin, they took everything.
And you got to keep in mind that I'm sure the crew chief or somebody's going to get suspended from both these teams.
Oh yeah, there's unless something comes out and they find out that maybe they didn't cheat and we just said they did,
Yeah, but you're going to see a point deduction. You're going to end up seeing some crew people being suspended indefinitely.
Yeah, and some money coming out.
Both drivers should be in the chase at this point. Kyle Busch is definitely in hotter water than Hamlin. I think Hamlin's a shoo-in at this point, but I'm assuming Kyle Busch will get in as well because he has the win. But, of course, there's still a couple races left. We'll see. But I just found it fascinating, and the kind of immediate scramble by the sports books after that whole debacle, especially since it was like 2 hours or 3 hours after the race. The one thing I thought was pretty funny was that after Hamlin won, that his crew immediately went into a prayer session, like right after the win, saying, thank you to everybody being involved. And I'm watching the prayer session, and I'm thinking to myself, and I actually said it out loud, you should probably wait till after the post-race inspection for you to do the prayer. And they actually failed the post-race inspection. And I don't know why, I just found that very funny. I said it while watching it. You should probably wait till it's officially graded as a win before you start the prayer, session, thanking everything. And it turns out that you actually not only did not win, half of you were going to get suspended. That kind of made me laugh. But, separate point.
And two quick last things there. Scott, what do you think of round robin parlays in baseball? I mean, I'm a fan of it, because that way, especially with the 10-teamer, if you don't want to pick all 10, you can just spin around or mix them up with some of the other ones. What's your thoughts on those?
They're fine. I mean, I feel like it definitely depends on what exactly you're looking for, because most people that want to bet 10-teamers don't want to settle for 60% profit. They're going for all the marbles. So you can talk about how some people, if you're going to do a 10-pick parlay, just want to go Hail Mary mode and try to win like 500 to 1. But for round robins, I think they make a lot of sense if you have faith in more than half of your picks actually hitting, because you can, of course, make a decent amount of change by only hitting 50-something% of your picks in the parlay. So I do think that it's a good way to bet parlays while also
Hedging
not relying. Yeah, it's kind of a built-in hedge where you don't have to rely on an all-or-nothing approach. Of course, the counterpoint is if you lose more than half your picks or just have an awful parlay day, you're going to lose more money because you're paying for each parlay.
True.
So it's not an automatic win, but if you trust your handicapping analysis and you don't want to, I'd say, put yourself in a spot where you have to hit every pick in order to win, I think round robin has some merit.
And J.C. Stone points out that the Pac-12 has a new rule for the football championship game where now it'll just be the two schools with the best conference winning percentage.
Well, I think you might have to do that now because you don't know who's going to be in the league in about 2 years. So you kind of have to pivot.
It's basically the Big 12, but the Big 12 didn't have divisions to begin with.
Yeah, I mean, you could argue that it's not going to change much because that was my argument for Oregon, except they're still going to play their division, and their division's still weaker than the other division. So
True.
The scheduling should be still easier. But you can argue that USC and Utah could have a rematch in the conference title game. But you have anything else you want to add for NASCAR, or should we just move on to the parlays for today?
No, the funny thing is JC said God wasn't on Hamlin's side.
I just found it amusing that they had like a whole thing, and then I'm like, you should probably wait until it's like official. It's in pen, and they did not. They settled for pencil.
It was erasable pen.
Yeah, it came back to bite them. But since we're kind of wrapped up on the weekend recap, before we get into the actual parlays, couple things to go through. First of all, we got to talk about BetMGM. They have a great deal for first-time users of their app or website. Got a risk-free bet up to $1,000. All the information is in the show box. Check the age limits, and as always, bet responsibly. And we also have some new programming headed to the Max Wagers Network and the Picks and Parlays Network. We have the Picks and Parlays Football Power Hour, which is actually starting today at 3 p.m. Eastern Time, where you have Allie and Lenny, and they're going to alternate as hosts as they go through the football season and some bets that you can look for, season win totals, conferences, etc. They're going to have guests every day, so if you like football coverage, they have basically an hour of football coverage starting today with the Max Wagers and the Picks and Parlays Network. So get excited about that, and I'll probably be guest appearing on that a couple of times. But
and Scott, J.R. Black, who called me Jim apparently, wants to know how she usually play props and parlays at. He said 5 dimes is gone.
Yes, it is, and that was the first book I remember that actually let you parlay props. Most legalized books let you, at least in some capacity. If you want to take player props, you can kind of parlay any of those nowadays. When it comes to how I handle those same game parlays, I really don't do that many of them because the actual payouts for same-game parlays are next-level atrocious, which is kind of the built-in scam for same-game parlays. I mean, I'm sure you can attest to it. You think you're going to
that's why I tend to bounce around. I don't stick with one-gamers. You're right about the single-game ones. I saw that in the playoffs where Jaylen Brown over 25 points and the Celtics to win or whatever hardly had a payout worth looking at.
Now, of course, the argument is it's fair that it's not full payout because they're correlated. So if you want to take this player over in points and this team to win, well, if this guy drops 40, they're probably going to win the game. So, of course, It makes some sense to have it correlated. But if you plug in some of your same-game parlays with the odds that the book gives you compared to what a parlay calculator would give you, I mean, you're getting absolutely robbed. So I might do it on occasion with a couple long shots, maybe a triple-double mixed in with a team to win or something if I like the value for it. But most of the time for same-game parlays, I tend to stay away, or at least I straight bet the ones I like, because the actual parlay payouts are nowhere near where they should be based on a parlay calculator. So
So what's your favorite book for that? I know you used to pull up a lot of props off of, what was it, FoxBet?
Yeah, I shop around. FoxBet was my college football boost parlay because they would give you a lot of mispriced lines if you requested them, and I made a fortune on that. Besides that, FanDuel's a pretty good one because they have pretty much everything you want. They have triple doubles for basketball. They have alternative 3-point numbers. They got pretty much everything. And baseball has home runs, hits, strikeouts, alternative strikeouts. So when it comes to the greatest variety, I think FanDuel's probably the best at this point. But I will keep an option for every other book in case I find something that is extremely mispriced, and I'll slam it.
Yep. But JC says that DraftKings does a lot of props too.
Yeah, DraftKings has some. BetMGM, I know, has same-game parlays, which they call one-game parlays, which is the same exact thing. I actually used to do that.
Differentiate by calling it one game.
I was going to say, I used to use them, actually, for same-game parlays because they had sacks. They were the only book that I remember that actually had sacks for the whole game. So you can parlay that with, like, the lowest point total possible, and it would pay out
-2.
It would pay out at, plus 200. So I'd actually take that, but then, unfortunately, they ended up taking it off because I guess they realized it was exploitable. But I did that for about a season with a friend of mine. For the most part, for same game parlays, if I ever use them, it's usually FanDuel.
Gotcha. So there you go. So should we talk about some tiddlywinks?
Yeah, let's do it.
Backgammon,
yep.
Croquet,
cricket,
rugby.
Yeah, all the above.
How about we start with the Atlanta Braves and Rye's Phillies? Well, Rye, I felt bad for you this weekend because you got rolled by the pitching combination of Justin Steele, Marcus Stroman, and Drew Smyly.
I had the Phillies on Friday. Not
so
fun.
did I.
Yeah, not fun.
How do you give up 15 runs to that lineup? And sure, you could say, well, they only gave up 10 in the first 8 innings, and then they beat up a position player.
Yeah.
Well, you were behind that far that you put a position player out there in the ninth.
Yeah, 19 hits to the Cubs. I mean, that's rough. But
so I'm going to fade the Phillies here. It's Max Fried. You know, Scott, he lost his first 2 starts of the year. Since then, he's 10-1.
Yeah, he's pretty good.
Meanwhile, Ranger Suarez liked him better as a reliever. You know, he was very good in that relief role last year. Had an ERA slightly over 1 and over 100 innings. He's one of those guys, you know, you talked about Jordan Hicks last week and guys like that. He hasn't made the transition to pitch effectively as a starter. And let's face it, I think the Braves are going to bounce back. I was on Atlanta yesterday to quote locomotive breath from Jethro Tull. Ian Anderson was the all-time loser. Gets Ohtani to lead off the first, gives up a whole crap load of hits in a row and a couple of walks. It was 5-0.
I thought it was 5. Yeah, the game was over before it started.
Yeah, pretty much. But you look here, the Braves 16-5 in their last 21 on the road. The Phillies 1-5 after a loss, 1-5 at home in their last 6 against left-handed pitching, and the Braves have won 7 in the last 10. Rye, hopefully, probably is day drinking since he's on vacation, so he'll be in a stupor by the time the game starts, so he won't pay attention when the Phillies lose 7-2.
I mean, I feel like I have to like Atlanta in this game also, just because of how lifeless Philly looked after the All-Star break. Team seemed to get back on track, but we were curious how sustainable it was. It lasted longer than I thought it was going to be completely honest with you, but it seems like Philly's starting to revert back. They're not getting many hits with runners in scoring position. The pitching hasn't been great. I have to like Atlanta because they're the better team. And Ranger Suarez, I know he killed me earlier this year against the Padres. The issue is that's his best start of the season, and he hasn't been good since. So I'm going to have to go with Atlanta because after the All-Star break, he gets swept by Chicago at home. I'm not saying that they're Red Sox bad right now, but I think they're an immediate fade team until they show some signs of life.
Yeah, James, I was going to say he forgot to say yo, but it was up there above it. Yeah. But he said he doesn't even want to hear that name with the Phillies after Friday night.
Mm-hmm. I mean, Schwarber homered in the first, and I'm like, all right, decent spot here. And then it's just like, nope, we're going to get our ass kicked. And I'm like, all right, cool. Thanks.
Yeah, 6th in the 5th, and
goes back.
You turn the lights out after that.
Yeah, pretty much.
Andrew said the Braves have been good to him, but they screwed him yesterday. They screwed a lot of people yesterday. Like we said, Anderson apparently forgot that batting practice ends in warm-ups, and
Well, we know Anderson's commands. We know Anderson's command's been all over the place this season, and instead of walking a bunch of guys, he just left him right down the middle.
Yeah.
But
he got teed off on that pitch like he knew I was going to throw a fastball.
Yeah.
He did know. I told him.
Mm-hmm. Well, he really knocked the crap out of that one.
Hey, give Denella credit. That man's got a family to think about. Mm-hmm. Well, we saw the Mariners come back to reality over the weekend. They got swept by the Astros. Robbie Ray, he had been on a roll, and he looked horrible yesterday. He looked like Ian Anderson.
It was the first pitch, right?
Pretty much.
No, I think it was actually the first pitch. Altuve took him yard. The game was over at that point, but not good.
Yeah, now you got the Rangers. I was cruising along with that game yesterday. Martin Perez was pitching well. Of course, they were up 10-1 after 5 innings. And
that ninth inning was hilarious. That was
I look at the box score afterwards. And I'm like 11-8. What the hell is this?
It's back home runs in the bottom of the ninth for no reason, just to lose anyway.
Yeah, to a bunch of guys that can't hit. I mean, come on, Tony Kemp went yard.
Yeah.
But here you got Glenn Otto. He's probably the best pitcher whose last name is a palindrome in Major League Baseball right now. So
I'll have to get back to you on that one, but that sounds accurate.
He's got that going for him, but that's about it. I mean, 5.40 ERA, 1.459 WHIP, walks 3 guys for every 4 he strikes out. And you look at Chris Flexen, talk about a guy that started the year badly. He was 0-50, 1-6 on May 16th. He was 2-8 on June 13th. He's won 4 straight decisions. He's unbeaten in his last 6 starts. That includes a no decision against the Rangers in his last outing before the break when he went 3 2/3. He had a run on 4 hits. Wasn't effective through 76 pitches, but Seattle went on to win that game 6-2. Scott, do you see any great shakes for the Rangers here in the Pacific Northwest?
Well, I think the main argument is Texas going to hit the ball because we saw them lose a series to Oakland because they couldn't hit for the first 2 games. Then they woke up and scored 11 in the 3rd game. So if Texas can actually get to Flexen early and often, then of course they got a shot at winning. The point is Flexen's 6-8, but his ERA is only 3.79. So even when he was picking up losses, he wasn't terrible. It was mostly because of the lack of run support. So he's been okay. He hasn't been atrocious, but am I really supposed to roast Seattle for losing to probably the best team in the American League? No, I get they won 14 in a row. They had an all-star break, which interrupted momentum. But you're playing Houston. If you lose a series to Houston or get swept, am I supposed to yell at you because Houston's a world beater? That team is sick.
Yeah, it's not like you lost to Oakland.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Texas lost a series to Oakland, and Seattle lost a series and got swept to Houston. I'd rather get swept by Houston. Just throwing it out there, because Oakland is one of the worst home teams in the league, and Texas was lifeless for 2 games. So.
Yeah, when I watch Oakland games at home at the Ring Central Coliseum, it reminds me of Major League where Harry Doyle's sticking the microphone out to try to get the crowd noise.
Yeah, they start making up noise, humana. They start, yeah. Nobody goes to the games. That's the thing. Oakland doesn't even have home field advantage because they only got 800 people in the ballpark.
Right, and 700 of them are hot dog vendors.
That's what I'm saying, and the other 200 are drunk. So, there we go.
But yeah, Flexen's last 6 starts, 4-0, a 276 earned run average, over 32 2/3. The Mariners have won 5 of the 6. The one loss was a 4-2 loss in the first game of a doubleheader against the Angels on June 18th. So if you want to throw that one out, they're 4-0 in his last 5. Or 5-0 in his last 5, I should say. He's 4-0 in that stretch. I just don't know what to make out of Otto. He's basically, the Eddie Harris of the Texas rotation. He doesn't throw anything hard. He doesn't throw anything that overwhelms anybody. He's basically the epitome of a junk ball guy.
Yeah, that it's a low floor when his ceiling is 5 innings, 2 runs.
Right.
It's pretty much his ceiling at this point.
We talk about how Flexen's been going well. Otto won against Seattle on June 4th when he went 5 innings, gave up 2 runs on 2 hits, walked 5, and struck out 4. Then he went on the IL. Since coming back from the IL on June 26th, he's made 5 starts. He's 0-4. His ERA is 7.59.
Yeah.
And 21 and a third. The Rangers have lost all 5 starts. I can't have faith in a guy that, if you want to call it his best start in that stretch, he gave up 2 runs against the Orioles in 5 innings in a game they lost 2-1.
I said 5 innings, 2 runs. That's the ceiling. Yeah.
Yeah, that was the one he lost when you had the over when it was him and Watkins.
And also Texas bullpen not great. So even if Otto pitches,
we saw that yesterday.
I was gonna say he doesn't go any length. So even if Otto pitches okay, there's no guarantee they'll hold on for the final couple innings. So.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
All right.
Do you see Otto going more than 5?
No, I don't.
I didn't look to see the pitching outs recorded prop on him.
Yeah, I was going to say Seattle so far this season has been okay at home, but the point is I do think after losing to Houston, they'll bounce back. And Seattle's also 8-2 head-to-head against Texas this season. So they take care of business against bad teams. I think it's probably going to be 9-2.
Yeah, that's a very good point, because if you think about it, too, the Rangers have lost 35 of the last 51 meetings with the Mariners overall, and 35 of the last 51 in Seattle. So, hey, they're consistent. They're just consistently bad.
Yeah, and 140, I think, is just a very good deal. So
let's see. Okay, outs. If you were to take Otto to get at least 1 out in the 6th, it's plus 125.
Yeah. I don't think he's going to get there. So
yeah, the under is minus 185. So
as it should be. So there you go.
He's got that going for him. Mm-hmm. All right, we'll take a look at 2 for the money. There's the Astros. I saw that. Who was it there? Nathan saying Houston and Oakland should be interesting. It's Jake Overeasy versus Adam Oller.
Yep.
You got anything good to say about Adam Oller?
I'm fading him. So hopefully he makes me some money tonight. But that was my play of the day. I was sitting there for like 20 minutes last night contemplating team total over 4.5, minus 1.5. Like I was really flipping back and forth because the odds are basically the same. It's a very weird spot for Odorizzi. It's the 3rd straight start against the Athletics, which I don't see that happening that often, but he's been very good on the road recently, so I thought about it. But I ended up just fading Oller. His numbers are terrible. He just faced off against Houston, gave up 3 runs in 4 1/3. Oakland's bullpen's not good either. And Houston's a world beater. If you're going to give me a guaranteed 9 at-bats against a terrible starting pitcher who should be in AAA, I ended up taking the team total of 4.5. But the wind's blowing out.
What was the prop on that? Minus 125 or so?
Yeah, minus 130.
Minus 130?
I mean, Oller could get shelled and nobody would be surprised, but he's going 5 innings in, I believe, 2 starts this season, and he's given up at least 5 earned runs in each start.
Yeah,
so
and just,
he's not good.
Just to your point about how bad his numbers are, 0-3, 856 earned run average.
And he's worse at home.
He's given up 8 homers over 27 1/3 innings and has walked more guys than he struck out.
And he's got the wind blowing out to right center with Alvarez and Tucker in the lineup. So have fun. But
good luck with that.
I mean, if Houston wins this game, I think Odorizzi should pitch well because he has pitched well in the past against Oakland. He's been good on the road. But at the end of the day, the reason why I ended up taking the team total, I just couldn't fully trust Odorizzi because every now and then he has some injuries and he doesn't look sharp. So I went for a strict fade of Oller. He shouldn't be in the majors. He's just not very good. So.
Nathan said, do you guys like the run line with the Astros? He can't see any other result because the A's are contractually obligated to play the game.
Yeah. I like the run line too, but...
Yeah, the run line, or like Scott said, team total over 4.5. If they can't score 5 on Oller and the A's, Houston might have bigger problems that we just haven't seen fully develop yet.
And they're healthy again because Alvarez missed a couple of weeks on the IL and he's back, and he homered in his first at-bat back against the Yankees. So, yeah, they're still pretty solid at the lineup, and Oakland can't pitch. So, yeah, I know.
They can't hit either, so they got everything covered.
They got everything covered, but the wind's blowing out too. I see Houston scoring a decent amount of runs. I don't see Oakland doing much of anything.
True. And we talked about the Mariners. We talked about the Braves. I'm going to go with San Diego on the road against the Tigers. I know last week we talked about how the Tigers hit left-handed pitching. But, Manaea, he's pitched against the Tigers 4 times in his career. He's 3-1. Let's face it, this Tigers team isn't striking fear in the hearts of anybody at this point. Do you see the Tigers hanging in with Drew Hutchison?
I actually think they could hang around. On paper, San Diego should win, but my question for you, and it's kind of I don't have the stats in front of me, but it's a notable, I'd say, fade. If you fade the Sunday night teams on Monday with travel, they tend to not perform pretty well. Does the traveling spot concern you? That Sunday night, San Diego plays a late game in Citi Field and now has to travel to Detroit?
A little bit, but I mean, at least you're not going from coast to coast.
Yeah.
You know, we talked about that with what was it, the Angels last week when they had to, after they played, or not last week, a couple weeks ago when they had to go to Miami after playing on Sunday night. I'm just worried about the fact that the Tigers don't score any runs. And while fatigue and all that could be a factor, you got to remember these guys just had 3-4 days off.
Yeah. That bullpen for San Diego, though, was disgusting last night. That was so bad.
Yeah, I mean, they weren't good Saturday in the bullpen either. So I think you're probably going to see 6, maybe 7 innings out of Manaea because you have to figure that Detroit's going to chase pitches early in the count because that's pretty much what they do.
I'll get a longer leash, too, because San Diego had to burn through a decent amount of relievers in the final couple innings yesterday.
Yeah, you look at Crismat, Garcia, Morajan, and Rogers were used Saturday. Yesterday was Wilson, Nick Martinez. You know, you brought this guy back from Japan or Korea or whatever to be in the rotation, and now you got him coming out of the bullpen.
Yep.
That's just called we don't have anybody we can rely on, so we'll stick him out there and hope that he can pitch.
Yeah, people keep talking about how the Padres are linked to Soto. They should probably trade for a reliever. Just going to throw it out there because their bullpen's atrocious. At least it has been.
I know you can dangle Aroldis Chapman.
I feel like San Diego actually would take the bait for some crappy prospect, but who knows? We'll see.
Speaking of crappy bullpens, how about the Diamondbacks bullpen yesterday? Way to cough that game up.
Not good. Do you have any thoughts on the Robles clown nose conspiracy or fiasco with Dave Martinez?
Here's my thoughts about Victor Robles. He should learn how to actually, hit at the major league level before he tries to clown anybody else. If it came down to a hitting contest, I'd take Madison Bumgarner over Robles.
The thing is, it really annoys me with how Bumgarner just constantly complains about people staring down home runs. Stop giving up home runs, okay?
There's that too.
Like you gave up a bomb to Muncy 3 years ago. You let Robles take you deep. Like that's your problem. Like Robles was so shocked he hit a home run, he had to show off because he did celebrate like it was a meaningful home run because he doesn't have many of those. But
yeah, he had 17 in 2019, and the rest of his career he has 11.
I don't know. I just think it's a little bit hypocritical for pitchers who will always curse out the batter when giving up a home run. But when they strike out somebody, they're fist pumping like Manoah saying like "sit your ass down," whatever. Like at least be consistent. Like you can't curse out the batter and then not be okay with him staring down a home run. It's the same thing.
Well, you were like not even a teenager when Carlos Zambrano was pitching at Wrigley Field. And you talk about an emotional dude.
Yeah,
Zambrano was probably wound a little too tight.
A little bit, but he also had the famous no-hitter in a home game in Miller Park.
In Miller Park, yeah.
So, I mean, I just think Bumgarner has always been a get-off-my-lawn kind of guy, and he hasn't pitched well enough in the last 3 years to actually avoid giving up home runs on a regular basis. It made me laugh. And honestly, when your team, like the Nationals, is 30-something games under 500, you can wear the clown nose. Hell, give it to Dave Martinez. It would fit him pretty nicely. Like,
true.
Well, you're the Nationals. What else you got to cheer for? You're going to trade Soto anyway.
And Nathan asked if you would take the Braves team total over.
The Phillies pitching has been so bad. I feel like I have to be tempted.
Like we said before, they're coming off giving up 25 runs and 8 homers to the Cubs in 3 games.
Yeah, Suarez is a pitcher who's also not going to go much length, even if he pitches well. But his home numbers have been awful. He's got a 5.15 bullpen. He's got a 5.15, home ERA, and his numbers against the Braves: 48 career at bats, 342 batting average.
Yeesh.
Yeah, they fare pretty well against him. So I'll go with the team total over there for Atlanta as well, with a guaranteed 9 at bats.
Yeah, looks like over 4.5 is minus 120 at BetMGM.
Good
If
price.
you think they're gonna score at least 6, then it goes to plus 135.
Yeah, I think they get there.
All right, and we'll talk about how about the San Francisco Giants. Jacob Eunice going against Tyler Gilbert. That's right.
It doesn't matter.
Well, they were originally talking it might be Merrill Kelly, and then they flipped back to Gilbert. And everybody that's a Giants fan was very, very excited about the fact that it was Gilbert pitching.
I was going to say it's either Kelly or Gallen or who cares? Because those are the only two pitchers that actually matter in Arizona's rotation.
Yeah, it's like the old Milwaukee Braves where it was spawn and sane and pray for rain. And that's basically what it boiled down to. I like the team total in play here for the Giants as well. I think it's 4.5.
Well, they need a win. They just got swept by their rivals pretty embarrassingly over a 4-game stretch.
This is true. But, I mean, facing a Diamondbacks team that is not very good.
Oh, it's a great price. Gilbert's terrible. It's a great price.
Yeah, I'm just looking to see if the team total was 4.5. Yeah, 4.5 is same with the Braves. 4.5 is minus 120. Over 5.5 is plus 135.
And Eunice has been good.
Yeah, and Gilbert and the Diamondbacks gave up a bunch of runs to the Nationals over the weekend, and we know Washington not that great. And here we go. We talked about Pivetta earlier. I'm going to fade him here. I'm going to take Zach Plesac. Plesac's another guy that's pitched fairly well, but keeps getting hit with no decisions because the Guardians decide not to score any runs until after he leaves. Yeah. Do you have any faith in Boston right now? Or are you just going to say fade him forever?
I can't believe Plesac has a 4.02 ERA and his record's 2-7. That's just disgusting. Like, can you at least score some runs for the guy? But I gotta like Cleveland here. Either money line, even if you want to make a case for the run line. I mentioned it before. But the Red Sox have lost each of the last 5 games by at least 3 runs. They're getting absolutely killed. Devers is out now, so the lineup's compromised. I can't believe Cordero is still in the majors. The guy strikes out arguably the same amount as Gallo at this point. Like, he's absolutely useless.
Yeah, him and Franmil Reyes.
I'm saying they don't. But Reyes actually can hit a home run every now and then. Cordero hasn't done anything. But the Red Sox, with the injuries and the pitching staff and the bullpen, I would keep fading them, potentially on the run line as well. You're getting 9 at-bats guaranteed, and it's plus 150. That's a pretty appealing price to fade a team that's in the middle of a collapse, isn't it?
Oh, I agree. And to your point about not scoring for Plesac, he's made 17 starts. They've scored 3 runs or less in 9 of them.
Yeah, but they're facing Boston's pitching, so they'll
right. So now they can score 12.
Yeah, there you go.
And then we've got the Dodgers. I put them down here just because of the fact that I'm not going to put a minus 294 on a 2-teamer, but I like the run line anyway.
I don't think we really need to break this down, do we? I mean,
well, I'm just going to throw out one number for you, Scott, and that's this. As a starting pitcher, opposing hitters have an 860 OPS against Paolo Espino as opposed to a 574 in relief. The second time through the order, that OPS, 987.
That means they should probably pull Espino after 3 innings.
And he's given up 8 homers in his last 27 and 2/3 innings.
And the Nationals, of course, had a decent weekend, but, I mean, when you sweep the Giants and you look like the world beater you were supposed to, it was a matter of time. I mean, we knew that the Dodgers were going to end up winning 100-something games before the season started, and they look at the best team, arguably, in the league. Yeah, they probably should win this game by several runs.
Jim asked, will the Braves catch the Mets?
I'm going to say no. I think Atlanta's going to make it a little bit of a race there. They might cut it to 2 at some point. I really think this Mets team is good. Like, I really like this
you realize they're only 1.5 back right now.
Yeah, but I'm saying I think they're going to be hovering around this spot for the rest of the season. At some point, they might end up catching them, like, fully. But I said 2 being kind of the key number there. I think the Mets are going to eventually hold on. DeGrom had a setback, though, which sucks for them because he was going to boost the rotation. And I'm assuming the Mets are going to buy again at the deadline because they just traded for Vogie, who had a decent night on Sunday night, but the Mets are willing to make moves. What exactly is the Braves' move besides, do you just pray Soroka comes back for the final push? Like, I don't know what moves they're going to make if you're Atlanta.
I don't know. Is there anybody out there they can pick up that's going to be an impact arm, I mean, Soroka, he's barely pitched in the last 2 years.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That he might be their quote-unquote trade deadline addition if he shows up and he's healthy. But, Jim, to answer your question, maybe at some point in the standings they'll catch up to the Mets, but I think the Mets are going to win the division.
Well, 12 more meetings between those teams in the second half of the year, starting with a 5-game set next weekend at Citi Field.
I'm going to lean Mets, but of course both teams are going to make the playoffs, so whatever.
And I'm going to take the Rays over the Orioles. The Klubot taking on Austin Voth. Not sold on Voth. I know he's had a couple decent outings since escaping Washington to go across the bay to pitch for the Orioles. I think Baltimore got a dose of reality coming back from the break against the Yankees.
They should have got swept, but
they're in a horrible stretch where I think it's 13 or 14 games, and they're all against the Yankees and the Rays. This is going to be a gut check for Baltimore, but I'm going to take the better pitcher here, even though Klubot has been nothing like he used to be. He's still good enough to keep the Rays in it. Maybe they'll score a couple runs.
Maybe. I mean, that's always asking a lot for Tampa, but Baltimore, of course, was the most popular playoff bet, I'd say 2-3 weeks ago when they were on the middle of that winning streak. But there's a reason why, I mean, their playoff percentage when the season started was like 0%. It's because the team is better than people thought, and the Red Sox are falling apart. But I still don't think Baltimore is a very good baseball team. They're fine. I mean, the point is the expectations were so low that people think they're okay now. But I don't think they're going to finish above 500. Like, I don't think their team's very good. It's been a good run, but they didn't look good against the Yankees. They only won because the bullpen sabotaged a great start by Cole. And the Yankees went 1 for 14 with runners in scoring position in that game. But Baltimore, they're a good team, but it's a very good price to get with a much better team in Tampa.
Yeah, and Nathan, we were just talking about how the Cubs beat up the Phillies. If you're talking about tonight, I liked it a lot better when Keegan Thompson was supposed to get the start. Then they switched it to Adrian Sampson.
Yeah, Sampson's been hit or miss.
Yeah, I would probably still back them against JT Brubaker because Brubaker is terrible.
Especially bad in the first inning.
That's true.
Brubaker, but one of the worst first-inning pitchers in the league.
Let's face it, the Cubs have won 4 straight games. I mean,
cooking.
Yeah, I mean they're on a roll. And Brubaker, he's got the good news. He's got a 3.79 ERA on the road. The bad news, he's given up 700 runs. The worst news, he's 0-6.
Yeah.
So he's got that going for him. But yeah, I'd probably lean towards the Cubs in that one.
I agree.
No bias because I faded them before. Faded them Friday, and of course they scored 15 runs.
The Pirates had a nice win there against the Marlins yesterday, but they burned half their bullpen because it went to extra innings.
Yep.
So,
yeah, we'll go to the shot in the dark and Steens to blame. Take note he's not in the chat, probably because he's too busy day drinking.
No, we said that we like the Chiefs under win total, and he's boycotting the show.
Oh, that's right. And he also said you were day drinking.
Yeah.
Somebody explained to me how Jose Ramirez is plus money on over 1.5 total bases facing the Orioles.
You mean the Red Sox?
Oh, right, the Red Sox. Sorry, I was thinking of Tampa Bay. I was thinking of Kluber still pitching for Cleveland.
Fine. Either way, still, point is, Red Sox can't pitch right now either. My only explanation, they watched the Jose Ramirez home run derby contest. One line drive off the wall, it's a double. So
that's true. Or if you hit one of those bloop shots that end up in the corner somewhere that nobody gets to.
Yeah, or, it's a pop-up and they lose it in the lights and it's the double because nobody touches it.
Like this.
So, yeah. I don't know where it is.
I like when you read the write-up when a guy hits an at-bat, it's like, Ramirez doubled to third.
Yep. It's like, all right, I can kind of piece it in my head, but I got to see this.
Mookie Betts over 1.5 total bases. Let's face it, it's the Nationals. We just talked about Espino's numbers. They're not good.
Yep.
Brandon Drury,
not bad.
Could be a guy the Reds could dump at the trade deadline.
They should. I mean, they got him on the cheap. He's jumped around. He was actually a former Yankee for a bit. But he's been hitting the ball well, and Rogers has been a disaster. So, yeah, I don't mind that.
Yeah, Austin Riley, you talk about a guy that's been hitting the ball lately. I mean, he's been on a roll, the last month or so?
Yeah.
He's up to, 292? and he's got 28 home runs. So he's not just hitting for power; he's hitting for average. He's got at least boy, the guy's on a bit of a hit streak here, isn't he?
Yeah, he's cooking.
Going back to July 5th, so he's got a 16-game hit streak during that stretch, 28 for 65, so he's hitting 431. And he's not just, like we said, he's not just hitting for average. 5 doubles, 8 homers in that stretch. Mm-hmm. And you're getting him at minus 105.
Against the pretty...
Against Ranger Suarez.
I was going to say, against the lefty, too. Like that's a pretty good matchup right there.
Taylor Ward. The second best guy on the Angels with Trout hurt.
Right now, yeah.
What do you make of that pitching matchup tonight? Noah Syndergaard and Zach Greinke. So you got a team that strikes out a crap load against right-handed pitching against a right-handed pitcher that doesn't strike anybody out.
Yeah, I mean, Greinke's numbers are atrocious. However, his numbers at home are actually pretty good. He's got a 1.86 ERA at home. So I guess the one pushback I'd have on the Ward prop is Greinke's actually been comfortable at Kaufman. But
how long will he last?
Yeah, he's not going to go much distance. That's kind of the other point you could make. But, yeah, it should be a matchup between two pitchers that should be traded at the deadline. Can we say that?
I would say so.
Yeah. So.
But anybody take either of those guys? I mean, you can't say they're any better than what a number 4 starter now?
I think the Red Sox would take one of us as a starting pitcher at this point, if they were going to buy. So, yeah, I think there's a market for some of these guys. And the Yankees can make a run for somebody if they want to go cheap. But, yeah, starting pitchers, you always wonder what the market is. And then somebody trades for, like, an awful Robbie Ray in Arizona. And you're like, why would you trade for this guy? And then he suddenly becomes good. Like, there's some belief you can fix a guy or at least use him as a short-term option.
Angels team total under. What do you think?
I don't mind the first 5 under in this game if you actually like both starting pitchers. But Syndergaard's been a lunatic at various points in the season. But both the lineups are not very good based on the injuries and just the lack of talent. You mentioned Ward, but with Trout being out, I mean, you should just intentionally walk Ohtani every time he's up, and you're going to be fine. I don't mind a low-scoring game, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah, let's see what the total is real quick. Angels team total. Under 3.5 is plus 105. Once you get 4.5, then it's minus 155.
Yeah, that's kind of where it should be. I don't see much value on that.
A fun thing you could always do is find some guy that steals bases for the Royals and put a couple bucks on him stealing a bag, because Syndergaard gives up a crap load of stolen bases.
Yeah, he can't hold anybody on. He's not as bad as Lester, but he's not good.
Yeah, but he gave up a stolen base to Jesus Aguilar a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, that is
true. He moves about as fast as a sundial. Mm-hmm. Bogarts, somebody's got to hit for Boston. He's about the only guy left.
But yeah, you put Devers in the sheet. You mean Bogarts?
My sheet says Bogarts.
I'm saying that the thing on here says Devers.
Really?
Sorry, no, that's later down below. I noticed. Devers
okay, yeah, I meant to cross that one out and I forgot.
Okay, cool. So that's why I got distracted. My mind went to Devers, but yeah, I see Bogarts too. Sorry.
Yeah, I had a strikeout prop in there and it just didn't copy over.
Okay. We'll get to it when we get to it, but you got the over on Bogarts.
Yeah, I'm going to take the Marlins here. Trevor Rogers, the good news is he's not pitching at home.
Okay.
The Reds, I don't know what to make of Lodolo because he hasn't pitched that much.
He was good in that one start against the Mets, and that's kind of it.
Yeah, he got lit up by Cincinnati in his last start, too.
He also goes in no length, and the Reds have the worst bullpen in the league. So
there you go.
Yeah.
So would you take the over 2.5 earned runs?
For which pitcher?
For Lodolo.
And with Miami's offense, I'll pass.
Bummer.
It's tempting, but I'll pass.
Cincinnati, though.
I was going to say, I like the team total over for Miami, but I kind of want the Reds bullpen involved.
All right, share the wealth.
Yeah.
I had – who did I put in there for my strikeout one? Anyway, Manea, I looked to go over the strikeouts. I just don't have any faith in Detroit hitting in this one just because they're too damn inconsistent.
Yeah.
Pavetta, he'll strike a few guys out before the Tigers, get him out of there. Oh, and the other one I had.
You mean the Guardians get him out of there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Indians, Guardians are all the same. And I'm going to go. The other one that was supposed to be in there that didn't was Kluber over 4.5 strikeouts.
Okay.
At plus 110.
We know Baltimore's not afraid of swinging a lot of bad pitches. So.
Yeah, the only thing I have to worry about is if they put too many in play on, an 0-1 pitch.
Yeah.
Because they do a lot of that.
They do, but they also strain a lot of guys because they have a lot of really bad options at the bottom of their lineup.
This is true.
So
one last thing, Scott. Do you think that it's going to stay under the total at Wrigley tonight?
How's the
Wind blowing towards the left field corner at 10 miles an hour. Game time temperature about 65 degrees, 80% humidity.
I was going to say, what's the actual total right now? Is it still at?
It is currently 8.5.
Okay, I wasn't sure if it was 8 or 8.5. I kind of like the Cubs team total over. If I was actually picking any total in that one, Cubs performed well offensively over the weekend, and
It's
you're looking
true.
at Brubaker. He's not afraid of giving up a long ball every now and then.
Brubaker.
Pretty often. So I actually think Sampson's decent. So I'll look at the Cubs team total over because I'm really not a Brubaker guy.
Not a fan of the Brubaker.
I am not. But we'll see what happens later. Anyway, you got anything else you want to say before we wrap up?
No, I think we covered everything.
Yep. Cool. So besides that, we'll be back tomorrow going through some more baseball parlays. But until then, good luck to all of you and all of your bets as I stall to pull up the close. Bye, everyone.